Imagine holding the most powerful empire in the world in your hands, knowing your time is almost up. What would you say? For Alexander the Great, his legendary life ended with words often whispered, but rarely understood. We're diving into the mystery of his final utterance, and why it might change everything you thought you knew about him. The year's 323 BC, the place is Babylon, the shimmering heart of an empire stretching from Greece to India. Alexander, at just 32 years old, has conquered the known world. But now, the conqueror himself is being conquered, not by a foreign army, but by a sudden, violent illness. The air in the palace is thick with tension. His generals, men who had marched with him through deserts and over mountains, gathered around his bed, their faces a mixture of fear and ambition. A legend lay dying. What brought him to this point? Was it a raging fever, a sudden sickness that swept through the city? Or was it something more sinister? The whispers of poison have echoed through history for millennia. Was it a resentful general, a political rival, or even a consequence of his own infamous excesses? The truth is, we don't know. The historical accounts are contradictory. Some say it was a relentless fever, following a night of heavy drinking. Others point to the omens that preceded his death-strange births, celestial phenomena, and the king's own growing paranoia. It seemed as though the world itself was holding its breath, anticipating the fall of its master. As his strength faded, his generals pressed him for an answer to the most critical question of all. To whom did he leave his vast empire? The fate of millions hung on his answer. According to the most famous account, Alexander, with his last ounce of strength, whispered two simple words: "Kratisto," to the strongest. Think about that. To the strongest? Was this a challenge? A final, epic contest for the men who had followed him to the ends of the earth? Or was it a cynical, perhaps even despairing, admission that his empire was too vast, too complex for any single successor, that only a trial by combat could determine who was worthy? The immediate impact of these words was exactly what you might expect. Absolute chaos. The moment Alexander drew his last breath, the power vacuum he left behind became a vortex. His top generals, the Diadocio, or successors, immediately began plotting against each other. Men like Ptolemy, Seleucus, and Antigonus, who were once brothers in arms, became bitter rivals. The wars of the Diadochi erupted, a series of brutal conflicts that would last for nearly half a century. They tore his magnificent empire apart, carving it into smaller kingdoms for themselves. In a way, Alexander's final words became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The empire did go to the strongest, but only after they had destroyed each other in the unity he had fought so hard to build. But is that the whole story? To the strongest is the version we all know, the one that makes for a dramatic, almost cinematic ending. But there are other, less-known accounts that paint a very different picture. Some sources suggest that when his generals asked who he bequeathed his kingdom to, he didn't say "Kratisto," to the strongest, but something that sounded very similar. Kratoro. He was leaving his empire to Kratoros. Craterus was one of Alexander's most loyal and respected generals. At the time of Alexander's death, Craterus was on his way back to Macedonia with 10,000 veteran soldiers. Had Alexander named him as his successor, it would have been a logical, stable choice. A dying king, weak and feverish, could his words have been misheard? Or, more cynically, were they deliberately misinterpreted by the generals who stood to gain from the ensuing chaos? Imagine the scene. Generals like Perdiccas, who was at Alexander's side, could have easily twisted a garbled name into a call for open competition, positioning himself to take control. We have to remember that history is written by the victors. The accounts we have of Alexander's death were written decades, sometimes centuries, later by historians like Arrian and Plutarch, who were working from sources that were themselves biased. Each of the successors had a vested interest in promoting a version of events that legitimized their own claim to power. The narrative of the strongest perfectly suited those who rose to power through military might, justifying their actions as the fulfillment of their king's final wish. The idea of a specific, named successor would have undermined their entire enterprise. So, Alexander's last words are more than just a historical footnote. They are a symbol of his entire legacy. If he said, "To the strongest," it aligns perfectly with his character. A man who valued strength, ambition, and martial prowess above all else. It's a fittingly epic and tragic end to a life lived on the edge. It suggests he knew his empire was a personal creation, one that could only be held by a leader as dynamic and ruthless as himself. But if he tried to name Craterus, it shows a different side of Alexander Alida, concerned with stability, with preserving the empire he had built. It suggests a more pragmatic ruler, thinking about the future of his people, not just his own legend. This version transforms his death from a grand Chiate finale into a tragedy of miscommunication, a final wish lost to the ambition of his followers. The enduring mystery is what makes this story so captivating. We are left to piece together fragmented narratives, to weigh the biases of ancient historians, and to speculate on the intentions of a man who died over 2,000 years ago. Was he the ultimate disruptor, throwing his life's work into a final, bloody contest? Or was he a king whose final, sensible command was drowned out by the greed of his lieutenants? This puzzle tells us so much about how history is made and how it's remembered. The past isn't a fixed set of facts. It's a story that we are constantly retelling and reinterpreting. The life and death of Alexander the Great teaches us a powerful lesson about leadership, legacy, and the fragile nature of power. A leader's final moments can shape the course of history, but the story of those moments is often shaped by those who are left behind. We may never know for certain what Alexander the Great truly said on his deathbed. The whispers from Babylon are too faint, the echoes too distorted by time. But in searching for the truth, we keep his story, his ambition, and his incredible legacy alive. The mystery itself is what ensures he will never be forgotten. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. What do you think he said? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving deep into the mysteries of history, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. We'll see you in the next one.